Welcome to Sunday. Good morning. Live and on tape from Perga Baptist Church at Sunday School. Good to be with you here again this morning as we talk about the sixth lesson in our series of dealing with emotions called Weathering the Blues. Have you got or have you had the blues? Well, you know, I grew up watching Gilligan's Island, and I saw this week, and if anybody ever had a reason to have the blues, and I know we just lost Mary Ann, and I was a student of Gilligan's Island, I've seen them all, but I saw this. They're gathered around, it says, the bottle came back. The note says, stay where you are. The U.S. has gone crazy. And I don't use that for any particular persuasion or party or anything, but if we look around us, when we're not grounded in Jesus and when we're not grounded in God, and when we get grounded on earth, sometimes things do go crazy. So maybe this week we can help you weather the blues. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by our circumstances. And it says, research says that this second Sunday in January is the height of the blues for us as humans. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by our circumstances, whether they be financial strains, paying for Christmas, whether it be health-related issues, whether it be family crisis, whether it be going back to school, whether it be social issues, whether it be political issues, whatever. It's easy to feel the blues and to get down. We can let our circumstances get us down. And in Psalms 31, where the lesson comes from today on weathering the blues, we hear, instead of down, we hear where God lifts us up when we are down. That's the main point. You'll hear me say that several times today during the lesson. God lifts us up when we are down. I'm going to read through the whole scripture, and then we're not going to take a verse by verse approach, or I'm not going to read to you out of the book. I try not to do that because I don't want words going from my mouth to your ears without entering, or your head without entering the mind of either. So let's read Psalms 31. In you, Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness. Turn your ear to me. Come quickly to my rescue. Be my rock of refuge, a strong fortress to save me. Since you are my rock and my fortress, for the sake of your name, lead and guide me. Keep me free from the trap that is set for me, for you are my refuge. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Deliver me, Lord, my faithful God. I hate those who cling to worthless idols. As for me, I trust in the Lord. I will be glad and rejoice in your love, for you saw my affliction and knew the anguish of my soul. You have not given me into the hands of the enemy, but have set my feet in a spacious place. Here we have David, maybe on the run, maybe in battle, maybe dealing with some other crisis, and it's thought that he's actually the author of this one, calling out to the Lord and taking refuge in the Lord. As we break down this lesson, I will always be honest with you. I don't feel like this is my lesson as much as it's God's lesson, because God has spoken through me to deliver this lesson. And I've found over the years that if I go back to last Sunday's main point, take it to the Lord and leave it there, whether I'm teaching or whether I'm teaching Sunday school or whether I'm teaching a lesson or whether I'm making a speech or whatever, I simply read through an outline, start thinking about it, and then gather material. And time again, the Lord has sent me what he thought I needed or what I think he sent to me to use. And that's the case again today. I read through the lesson a little bit later than I usually do. I read through it Friday, and as soon as I put the lesson down, I picked up my phone, and a friend of mine, Jack Rudy, had sent a video that I'm going to use in conclusion today, and it's very, very powerful. And then I went to sleep thinking about this lesson, And again, being honest with you, I worked on it all night because that was what I either dreamed or thought about. Many times they say the last thing you're thinking about before you go to sleep will be something. I used to do that in studying. I used to listen to a tape and of something I needed to memorize, or I'd listen to it over and over again before going to sleep. And there's research that says that it might have some effect. So today, and then I don't think it was a coincidence, I woke up to the early NBC show where they were talking about weathering the blues, and they actually used the blues term. And they said that it was the blues depression was tripled during the pandemic. They broke it down this way. They said, number one, there's an expert on there talking about the seasonal blues. And then there was the pandemic blues, dealing with the coronavirus, and the seasonal blues, obviously dealing with the winter. I don't know if you noticed or not, but the days are getting longer every day. And then third is the chronic blues, or clinical blues. And again, being honest with you, there's a difference in these three levels of blues. Obviously, there's medical blues, there's tragic loss blues, and some of them we can't be just flippant to say, well, get over it, or move on, or get a grip. You know, we would never do that. I hope we would never do that. I hope there's not anyone that would do that, but sometimes it's hard to believe that some people do what they do. But when we talk about the blues, we're not talking about those type of blues. Certainly, I am not dismissing the need for medical help and or professional help when we deal with that level of depression and that level of blues, because folks, it's real. It's real, and we have to deal with it. So let's talk about those blues, weathering the blues. In the passage today, we hear David saying several things like, seek refuge in the Lord. God is my rock and my fortress, and cast our cures on the Lord. So today, I'm going to break this lesson down into two analogies and a video, and try to share my thoughts, or what I've been led to share through this lesson. First, you've heard me say on many occasions the story about Kelly going to school, and they wanted to tell something about their family member, and she stood up and said, my uncle is a doctor. And they all oohed and awed, and then Kelly said, yeah, but he ain't the kind of doctor that can help nobody. So as a doctor that can't help nobody, I want to talk to you about some disorders this morning, and maybe give you a diagnosis, and maybe even give you a prescription from a doctor that can't help nobody. Take it for what it's worth. First, in doing a little research, there are 11 million people that suffer from what's called SAD, Seasonal Affective Disorder, SAD. Wintertime brings that on. Less sunshine, less being outside. And we know, and probably all of us have gone through some of that. And then I went further, and there's also a mood affective disorder that can happen anytime during the year, an actual diagnosis, MAD. So we got sad and we got MAD. And as I thought about this, I thought about a good story from my background that is a special story to me because it involved working with farmers. I love working with farmers, and I had the opportunity through a leadership development program to take farmers to all our state capitals and to Washington, D.C., and really, literally all around the world. And actually in this class, my good friends Steve Pascal and Greg Story were in it, and they were in the beef production as well as crop production and dark fire tobacco production. And we had an opportunity to go to Tennessee, to the state capitol. And we had an appointment with Lieutenant Governor John Wilder. Now, I don't know if you knew Lieutenant Governor Wilder or not, but he was kind of a no-nonsense guy. He was actually the Lieutenant Governor of Tennessee for 36 years. He was lieutenant, as Speaker of the Senate, that he won that race every time. He was Lieutenant Governor under 6 different governors. So he was a mainstay. And if you wanted, they said if you wanted anything done in politics in Tennessee, it had to go through Lieutenant Governor Wilder, because he could either support it or he could kill it. And we were firsthand evidence of that. At the time, there was a disease going around called the mad cow disease. It was never diagnosed in the United States, but around the world there were several cases of that, and we didn't want it to get in here. And somebody introduced a very frivolous bill that was far too reaching in Tennessee, and it was to deal with mad cow disease, which we had no instances of. So they proceeded to, Lieutenant Governor Wilder said, "How can I help you?" And they told him about this bill, and he said, mad cows. We don't like mad cows. We like glad cows. And he turns in his chair. First of all, his office was dark because he didn't believe in turning the lights on. He was that physically conservative, but he turned his chair. I'll never forget it. He picks up the phone and he hits the numbers and he puts the phone up there and he said, this is all he said, mad cow bill. Kill it. Kill it dead. We don't like mad cows, we like glad cows. Boom, bill killed. So what I'm gonna prescribe to you today, this morning, is glad instead of sad and mad, and that's called God-lifted affective disorder. David said, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Where else have we heard that? Didn't Christ issue that on the cross? Just a slight difference in wording. Yeah, we know Christ referenced many things in the Old Testament, and it came to it. Take it to the Lord and leave it there. God lifted. God lifts us up when we are down. So I want to prescribe glad to you this morning. I even want to write you a prescription. And the prescription is, if you take your hand and you do this, in my study, I think this is right. That is the sign language for glad. So if you'll take your hand, put it here in front of you, you can participate in this lesson. Get glad. God lifted affective disorder. The second illustration, and I worked on this one all night. This is the one that came to me during the middle of the night, and I went to bed thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to deliver this? The weather's turning cold, and immediately I started working on this thing. Brother Mike, thanks for this. I know you usually watch this. You rubbed off on me. I thought I needed to get some alliteration this morning. So literally all night I worked on what I'm going to call the PPP lesson. You know, we got PPP, another round of PPP coming out, and that was, again, one of the last things that I was reading about before I went to bed. So the alliteration that came out through my planning all night was persistent plumbing problem. And I'm going to call this winter in your spiritual pipes. You know, with the weather turning cold, some of us have to do that. And I admit, growing up, we had a persistent plumbing problem in the Brannon household. Because you see, my parents added on, so that's the first PPP, persistent plumbing problem. You see, we added on to our house when I was young in high school, and we added on a bathroom, a utility room, 2 bedrooms, and they went out and knocked the back wall out of the house and went out, and everything worked fine except one thing. And that was they didn't dig out the foundation underneath there, and the ground went up. So they built the foundation with about a 10 to 12 inch crawl space. If you're building a house, never build a house with that little a crawl space unless you've got somebody that's very little and you want them to, and they're going to stay little. So it became my job during this persistent plumbing problem. The plumbers also messed up, and they let one of the water pipes, one of the plastic water pipes going from the utility room to the bathroom drop down and hit the ground. It got grounded. And every time it would get 20 or 25 degrees, that pipe would freeze. So as a youngster and relatively, well, not relatively, a whole lot thinner, it was my job, because nobody else would crawl under there, to crawl under there. And eventually, obviously, I outgrew that. But we had a problem with the pipe placement, another PPP. And it would freeze. So as we would weather the winter, we would persistently have to thaw the pipes. And the problem required the prone position and propane, a source of fire, another PPP. We'd have to crawl under there and take the the torch and get it, or later on, after my dad got ill and passed away, my mother would call and, Tony, I forgot to leave the water dripping and the pipes froze again. And of course, I'd do what any brother would do. I'd say, hey, Tim, the pipes froze. What are you going to do? And he would bring a propane heater or the kerosene heater or whatever we had down to unthaw it. So we had this PPP problem. And finally, after about 20 years of dealing with this persistent plumbing problem, we figured out a prime pipe position. And we quit looking down and we looked up. You familiar with that? When God lifts us up when we're down. We need to look up when we go through some of these blues. So we had a plumber to come in. Instead of running the pipes underneath the floor, we run them up. We run them through the ceiling and down, where the heat goes up, and we've never had a pipe freeze since then. If you want to weather the blues, winterize your pipes. PPP. We can address it through proper, persistent prayer. Looking up to God above to weather the blues. And of course, I woke up after that whole night and immediately I had to PPP. Excuse me. Perhaps you've seen, as we think about that, footprints in the sand. One night a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking along the beach with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from his life. For each scene he noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to him and one to the Lord. When the last scene of his life flashed before him, he looked back at the footprints in the sand. He noticed that many times along the path of his life, there was only one set of footprints. He also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest in times in his life when he was weathering the blues. This really bothered him, and he questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I have noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there's only one set of footprints. I don't understand why when I needed you most, you would leave me. The Lord replied, my son, my precious child, I love you and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you see only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. God can lift us up when we're down. Footprints in the sand. And lastly, it's not just God lifts us up, but also we need to help God lift up others. I think we would be remiss in this lesson, and I think even the writers of the lesson missed this, because how does God speak to us? Sometimes he speaks to us through other people. We have to be available and ready to be used. Folks, this video rang my bell. And in the words of our former pastor, Brother H.D. Hudson, if this don't ring your bell, then your clapper's broke. Don't just change a tire, change a life. This video is 9 minutes long, but it's very powerful. A tow truck driver pastor.
Times we have life-altering situations happen in our life, and I wanted to get on here. I normally don't get on at 3:30 in the morning, but I'm getting on at 3:30 in the morning because of what just happened to me. I feel like there's times in our lives, there's life-altering things that happen. And this morning, this evening, however you want to look at it, I feel like that's happened. And I want you to stay with me through this video, because I'm all up in my emotions right now. So I'm going to go through the scenario with you so you understand what God does. So I'm going to go quickly if I can. So I get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning for a tire change. That's nothing unusual.
He's a tow truck
I'm
operator.
frustrated, aggravated. I've been out most of the night. I got about 45 minutes of sleep, so I was frustrated. I looked at the call. It's south of me, about 15 miles. And in the notes, it says the guy don't know where he's at. Exactly. 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody don't know where they're at, and he's drunk. Let's just get honest with you. That's usually what happens. So I get on the road, and I call the guy, and he tells me he's on one highway. And I get to that part of the highway, and he didn't sound drunk. He sounded like a young man. He's got a new car. So I know he's got a jack, I know he's got a tire, so I'm already frustrated. I'm just walking through my feelings here. And he wasn't on that highway. He was 0.8 of a mile from 55, but he wasn't on that highway. He was on another highway about 10 miles further. So when I called him, when I was talking to him, I said, "Sir, you understand it's going to cost you X amount of dollars because you're further away." I was frustrated. I couldn't understand why this kid couldn't change his own tire. Why I had to get out of bed. Stay there and watch this. So I get to him, I find him, I get turned around. He's a little skittish, you know, because I passed him and I go way past him to get turned around. I'm in my big truck, and my Kenworth, and he called me. He's like, "Sir, you just passed me." I said, "Son, I got to turn around. I got to find a place to turn around." And you're kind of. So I get there. He's on a hill. He's on a curve. He's on a 2-lane road. There's no shoulder. It's a dangerous spot. So now I'm even more frustrated. So I get out. I get all my equipment out, and he's standing outside the car. He's a young kid. He's a kid, 20-something. And I could tell that he was distraught. I could tell that he'd been crying. I didn't know if it was over the tire change or not. It's none of my business, right? But I could tell. So I got in his car to pull his emergency brake because we was on that hill and on the curb, and I was fixing to jack his car up. When I did that, I noticed a pistol in his front seat. It was on top of a hoodie. I didn't think nothing of it. You're on a back road, you know, you're scared. I get it. So I get changing his tire, and I get doing what I always do, ask him a few questions. "Son, what are you doing out here this late night, not knowing where you are?" He said, "I had to go." He said, I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Chesterfield." Okay. You don't know that? Where we was from, folks, that's about an hour and a half drive. I said, "Son, what are you doing all the way out here in Chesterfield?" I'm from Chesterfield, driving around 3 o'clock in the morning in a brand new car that shouldn't have had a flat. He said, "I was just driving around trying to clear my head." I knew then what I was dealing with. I knew that moment. I felt in my spirit that I was dealing with a suicidal person. And the God who woke me up and chose me to go change this boy's tire, that I might have a talk with this young man on the side of the road and get a chance to pray with him. He explained something to me. We had a phenomenal conversation. I literally knelt down on my knee and prayed with this boy. Right there on the side of this highway. At that moment, I didn't care. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't changing a tire. God had put me in this boy's life. I said, "Son, I know what you're doing." He said, "You do?" I said, "Yeah, you wasn't trying to clear your head, son. You was looking for a place, wasn't you?" He said, "Yes, sir, I was. I just couldn't do it." I said, "Son, I need you to be honest with me. I need to know your mama's phone number. And I need that gun out of that truck, out of that car. I don't want want to take your guns, son. I want to take your bullets. Can I do that? He said, yes, sir, you can. That's what I did. I called this boy's mama. And I talked to her. She was crying because she was worried about him. She was home praying. I said, ma'am, I know about praying, Mama. I got one. I said, son, I talked to his mom a little bit. I told her, I said, here, I want you to talk to your boy. That boy cried harder than he never cried in his lifetime. Right here, I believe it. I believe it in my heart. They hung up, and I looked at him. I said, son, I don't, and I just talked what God told me to say. And I prayed with him again. And I sent him on his way. I got my truck and I cried. Because I complained and I griped about getting out of bed to go change a tire at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is what I know. You have to be available and you have to be ready for God to use you at any moment. If you're watching this video and you've had those thoughts, I've been there. I've done that. Literally. If it wasn't for my boy that's watching right now, I wouldn't be here today. It was a God encounter that evening when my son walked back into the house and something had prompted him. And he come in and cut me down from hanging in my closet. I know what it's like to want to take a life. And I know what this, I've been around the families of people that's taken their life. And all it does, young man and young lady, is transfer your pain that you got to pain to somebody else, to your family members. All the pain that you're dealing with, all the things that you're going through, all that does is it leaves an empty void because they don't understand why. And it transfers that pain that you're in into every single family member you have and every friend that you have. If you were thinking of taking your life or harming yourself, reach out for help. Professional help. Not just anybody. Professional help. Get yourself some help. Tonight, this morning, however you want to look at it, because I was in bed. Tonight, I was available. Be available. No matter how uncomfortable it makes you, no matter how inconvenient it is, you never know where God is leading you to that use you. And be aware of your surroundings and be mindful to let God speak to you and let God bring knowledge to you, because if you don't, you'll pass right by it and you won't see it. Be available and ready for God to use you. I got to get up in a few hours if I even go to bed at this point to preach to some of the greatest people that I pastored. I'm just honored to pastor these people. I'm honored to be their preacher. I'm honored to bring them the word. But I'm honored that God used me tonight. We're going to call him Jay, just his initial J. Pray for Jay. Pray for Jay's mom. God moved tonight through prayer. Keep praying, folks, for your family members. God will change it, I promise.
Proper, persistent prayer. God lifts us up. But remember, we need to also help God lift up others. Be a praying mama. I had a praying mama. Thank God I had a praying mama. Be a praying friend. Be a praying daddy. Be a praying church member as we deal with weathering the blues. Don't be sad. Don't be mad. Be glad. Winterize your spiritual pipes with proper, persistent prayer. Don't just change a tire, change a life. When we are down, God lifts us up. And he'll carry us through to the other side. Remember the story about the disciples going from one side of the lake to the other, and Jesus went to sleep. The storm raged. They woke up Jesus and said, what are you doing? And he said, "O ye of little faith, I'm going to carry you to the other side." Then at the cross, he said, "Into thy hand I commend my spirit." He's going to carry us over to the other side, folks, one day, and it's going to be a glorious, glorious reunion. When we're down, God can lift us up. Let's end with a word of prayer. Lord, thank you so much for this lesson, how you spoke to my life, and I hope spoke to other lives. Help us to look to you, to look up when we're grounded, when we're frozen, when we're experience the elements, and not just go through that same routine over and over, but to look up. Let's change the paradigm. Let's look to God, because we know that you can lift us up when we're down. Help us to be available this week. Help us to reach out to others. We can make a difference if we will utilize the God-given salvation that you've given us and shed it to other people. Lord, thank you for allowing us to go with you. Allow us to go with you this week and help somebody else as we help ourselves through looking up to you. In your precious name we pray. Amen. Thank you for joining us. See you at 10:15, live or on tape, for our Sunday worship.